Pack to the Future is brought to you by the Ticket King. Whether you're making the trip to see Aaron Rodgers and the Packers play at legendary Lambeau Field, you want to see Giannis and the Bucks at the beautiful Fiserv Forum, or the Badgers, Brewers, or any concert tickets you might need, the Ticket King is your source no matter the occasion. Visit them online at theticketking.com and search their selection for yourself. And remember, there's no such thing as a sellout when you can go to the Ticket King. One more time, that's theticketking.com.
I gotta get my boss up a little bit.
I want you to use hot dog and chili.
Hey, you got any left-handed football? We need fire. Is anybody else tired or is it just me? Good thing I'm with you. You got any eligibility left? I got some advice for y'all. Take 2 weeks off, then quit.
We are finally back to Packers football, and we want to welcome you. I am here with Matt to the Pack to the Future podcast. This is the New Era version, and we are excited to just come together, man. Matt, I'm excited, man. Are you glad to be back?
I'm glad to be back. I'm glad we're talking after a victory more than anything.
Man, victory! It's well, today's we're recording on Sunday, but man, we had Green and Gold Friday. We're gonna have a special Sunday, man. We're gonna have Victory Monday. You know, we got like
victory every day until next Sunday.
Yeah,
victory
man.
Until next Sunday.
That's it. That's it. We are absolutely ecstatic to be a part of the Pttf team. I know I'm excited to just kind of be a part of this and see where this goes. So I'm excited, man. So, Matt, the Packers came out with a victory this past Thursday night in Chicago, of all places, against obviously a formidable Bears defense, man. Talk to me, Matt, a little bit about just kind of your thoughts about the game in general.
Oh, what to talk about. Well, obviously, first game of the season, it's really hard to glean anything from it. You're on the road against a divisional rival, against a defense that really last year was historically good. They were obviously the number one defense in the league. No matter what you were going to go into that game with, you had a new head coach, you had a new offense. It wasn't going to be pretty, and, I mean, the outcome absolutely showed that. Now, there were some worrisome things that I saw from the offense. Rodgers didn't look sharp. Part of that could be the preseason. He missed, he didn't play really any of the preseason games. But, I mean, you watch that defense, and it's hard not to be excited about it. And I don't know how you feel about that, but watching the Smiths go to town was just a ton of fun. Oh, yeah.
I'm with you on all points. As the season opener, obviously against a really, really tough defense, we would have liked to see a little more fireworks on the offensive side because, to be honest, it was talked about a lot. And, I think Packers fans in general were expecting more than what we got to see. That being said, the defense, man, I mean, we finally have a defense. And that, I mean, I am as fired up as anybody about that because, like you said, the Smiths, man, Smith & Smith, it's the new, law firm in town or what have you. These guys, they affected Trubisky all night. They got after him. They held up really well in the run game. They each had, sack, and we'll talk about some of that stuff in a little bit. But hey, man, you come out with a W on the road against a really tough team. There's what's not to like.
It's hard to win in the NFL, man. It doesn't have to be pretty every single week. As long as they came out and showed some progress from last year, and the defense was an absolute progression from last year. It couldn't have gotten any better than it was on Thursday night. The pass rush looked good. The secondary looked good, and I want to get a little bit more into that because that got me really excited. But honestly, it's hard not to be impressed by the defense after that game.
Right. So let's go ahead and let's lead off in a little bit different direction. Let's kind of talk about the cons a little bit, and I do want to say some things that stood out to me, and we'll just kind of go on from there. So one of the things that I had noticed, at the beginning of the game, the Bears' defensive front really gave our offensive line some fits, and I thought at times they were kind of bullied, at times throughout the game, and more so on the interior, with the guards, and they eventually settled down in the second half, but the free agent, acquisition of Billy Turner, I think is a positive one, but there was times that it seemed that he was overpowered. I don't know if you kind of saw the same thing.
So, and the hard part is with a new free agent, and you're bringing somebody in, an offensive line is a lot of chemistry, especially on the inside. It's
Right.
really tough to be that critical of somebody so early on. And then, oh, by the way, you're facing the best defense right off the bat. So,
Right.
I give him a little bit of a pass. Who I don't give a pass to is Lane Taylor. I swear, he got absolutely crushed in the first quarter. There was like a one-arm stiff arm that I led to a sack. I think it was, oh God, I can't remember who exactly it was. Robertson Harris it was.
Right.
Just absolutely bulldozed Taylor. And Taylor's he's been a starter for the last 2 years. That absolutely cannot happen.
Right.
And, that's a little worrisome. And, you saw Elton Jenkins kind of come into the preseason and play pretty solid snaps. So it kind of makes you think, how long of a leash is Lane Taylor going to get if he's going to just give up terrible pressure up the front?
Right. I think, I'm with you, I'm not knocking Billy Turner, obviously, we've got a lot of games to play. There's a ton of football to be played yet. But it was just an observation, it was something that I noticed. And yeah, you're definitely right about Lane, him being a 2-year starter, going into, his third, season starting. Yeah, he definitely, I think could have played better at times. And I think, at times he was just, he was manhandled. And I think, some of it could be, chemistry. Some of it could be kind of knocking the rust off, just everything. I think the Bears definitely, punched the Packers in the mouth, kind of early on, and, kind of stunned them, because I know the initial game plan looked like, LaFleur was just trying to run, and it definitely wasn't happening. And so, that was just something I had noticed, to kind of carry off of that, speaking of the run game, Aaron Jones really couldn't find any holes, and, I was noticing that, he definitely struggled throughout the game. I noticed he had 13 carries for 39 yards with a long of 9. And basically, again, that was much, due to the Bears front bringing a ton of disruption.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and honestly, they had 25 total attempts, and guess what? They only had 8 additional yards to what Jones offered. So, yeah, honestly, that was a little worrisome from my standpoint. LaFleur wanted to establish the run, and they really couldn't do much with it. So, but, again, it's so hard to say that that's a negative in the first week when you're playing such a good defense, but it was such an emphasis, and if they want to continue to use play action, they got to make the run more effective. And while I will say the play action that they used to MBS for that bomb was absolutely perfect, and it gave me a lot of hope. It gave me a ton of hope, because if they can get any kind of ground game established, that's only going to be more effective, and it'll only make MBS even more of a threat.
Right. I think what was happening was the Bears knew, firsthand, they knew that the Packers were going to come out trying to run. They were going to try to establish that. And so they really keyed on it, and in doing so, yeah, it definitely, created issues, obviously, in the pass game, and them kind of, just trying to stuff all the run lanes and, not let, the running backs get anything going. It was definitely a challenge that, the Packers, something they've definitely got to work on. I think all off season, again, that's, what we had heard from LaFleur was, hey, we are going to run and run and run to set up the pass. And, it just really didn't happen in this game. Jamal Williams, he also added 5 carries for 0 yards. He had 2 receptions for 15 yards. So, again, much credit to the Bears defense, as bitter as that tastes coming out of my mouth. You got to give them credit.
They're a really solid unit, but, it's really hard to run against them. And, honestly, they showed it's hard to pass against them. They have such a good pass rush and a pretty solid pass defense. Eddie Jackson back there is really good. Kyle Fuller is really solid. He had a couple of good pass breakups on Thursday night. So, but as harsh as I feel like we've been on the offensive line, I kind of want to bring up something that I feel like it was an absolute strength. And boy, oh boy, those tackles looked absolutely fantastic on Thursday night. Brian Bulaga played like an all-pro. And I don't think I hesitate in saying that. He looked really good against Khalil Mack and those edge rushers.
Absolutely. Yeah, they did a great job, which definitely, obviously, gave Rodgers time, certainly to round the edge off of play action and, definitely allowed him to, step up in the pocket at times, when need be. The production, again, wasn't really there. But yeah, man, I mean, the tackles did their job. Bakhtiari, I heard at one point throughout the broadcast, I think he had gone against Mack, I think it was like 16 times, and basically, he stuffed him, and that's something that you like to see. And Bulaga looked really, really solid. I mean, Bulaga is a great player when he's healthy. We all know that, and he looked really good in Week 1. So that was pretty awesome, pretty promising to see.
Yeah, I forgot where I saw it this week, but somebody had tweeted out that the Bookends only gave up 1 pressure, and it was from Bakhtiari, which, I mean, kind of stunned me, especially when they're kind of throwing Mack all over the place. But that's a win. When you consider who's rushing against them, that's an absolute win. So, and honestly, that might have been the difference in that game. If they got home to Rodgers a few more times, kind of got up in his grill, forced a couple more sacks, forced a couple of turnovers, it makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I noticed that, the Bears defense also, they keyed on Adams, and, there was, hopefully you saw that video like I did, of Adams counting the receivers, or I'm sorry, counting the DBs that were, in coverage of him, which, I thought was hilarious because, they took away essentially the Packers, best, perimeter weapon, best receiver, obviously, and they did their best to try to eliminate him from that game. And really, that kind of put all the pressure on the tight ends, on the other guys, MVS, Geronimo, Trevor Davis, and, that was something, I think it was a smart game plan from the Bears to try and, basically just take away, Rodgers' favorite target. But, other guys stepped up. Let me ask you a question. Jimmy Graham, he's leaping, he's catching, he's hurdling. Is this the Jimmy Graham of old?
Oh, boy. I liked what Jimmy Graham did. I felt like the touchdown was encouraging. I feel like that catch in the open field was, that was vintage Jimmy Graham there. I would say it seems like LaFleur knows how to properly use Jimmy Graham, which was something that I feel like that was a big problem with Mike McCarthy, was he just didn't know how to utilize him. And then I kind of saw Jimmy Graham go and try and seal block Khalil Mack, and I was like, okay, yeah, maybe that wasn't the best decision. So, no, it was encouraging to see the tight ends get a little bit more involved, because you saw Graham, that hurdle was great. But, we need to see him against a different team, because Roquan Smith's a really good linebacker, and I feel like he was shadowing the tight ends and the running backs all day. Eddie Jackson's a great safety, and they were doing the same thing, So it's encouraging. It really is encouraging to see Jimmy Graham a little bit more involved. It is a little discouraging, though, and I kind of want to get your feel on this. They didn't really have much on the outside other than Devontae Adams for a few catches and Valdez-Scantling for that deep bomb. It just, once Valdez-Scantling went out with cramping, I got a little little concerned that there really wasn't anybody else on the outside. Geronimo Allison with 0 catches.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely something that didn't look good. I kind of had here in my notes, in my silent contributors. Tanyan had one reception for 28 yards, and Davis also had 1 reception for 28 yards. So these guys are going to have to step up. Geronimo is going to have to step up, and it was concerning, because MVS, I believe, is the number 2, guy, and Geronimo, we've seen Geronimo do a much better job than what he did. So maybe it was Rodgers he couldn't find him, through the traffic, because he was pressured at times. He was sacked. 5 times? Correct me if I'm wrong. And so, I get all that, side of things where, it could be difficult for Rodgers to find everybody, but that's not to say that, there wasn't a player or two that, Geronimo wasn't open on. But again, credit to the Bears defense, but yeah, definitely concerning. We gotta have more guys on the offensive side of the ball to be able to get, some passes to. So Rodgers finding Tanyan, that play, and also Davis, that was encouraging, because, Davis, I think, had just come in, and, he gets a quick catch and a little bit of a run, after catch, and that was nice to see. And so, more guys need to definitely step up, if Adams isn't, able to contribute in the game.
Yeah, I actually really liked what I saw out of Trevor Davis. I think that obviously he had a really good training camp and a really good preseason.
Yep.
It was encouraging to see that. I think you're going to see him a little bit more involved now. With St. Brown out for a while. He's out for the season. Sorry, I completely forgot they IR'd him. And really, Geronimo Allison was invisible that game. And I think part of it is the defense they were playing. And it's just tough for somebody like that to kind of establish himself. That's not like he's a solid route runner, he's a solid catcher, but he's not gonna blow anybody away with his speed. Devontae Adams has that great first cut that everybody knows about. That you see dozens of videos on Twitter, just of him destroying cornerbacks. But Allison just doesn't have that. So if they take that away, his size and that, just those passing lanes, it's tough to really get him involved. So Trevor Davis really does have that skill set, though, of getting behind the defense and the DBs. That if MVS, obviously it sounds like it was just cramping, but if MVS drops out, that's probably who gets a little bit more involved. Just having that deep threat, having somebody who can take the top off the defense, they need that. And if he can prove, that 28-yard catch was awesome. I loved every second of it, but they need more of that. They absolutely do.
No, yeah, most definitely. So we're a few minutes in here, so why don't we switch over to the defensive side of the ball, the side that really stole the show here. So let's talk about some people here. So some of my silent contributors on defense. Man, Raven Green had 6 tackles, 5 solo, playing in this, hybrid linebacker role. Obviously, Oren Burks being out, Bolton, also being released. Who else is in the mix? Ty Summers had a tackle in the game. Raven Green was really the guy that they trusted in there alongside Blake Martinez. And, man, I thought he played really, really well.
He's a really athletic guy. He's a little undersized, so you kind of worry about him at the inside linebacker playing like the box safety. But he looked really good. He really it looked like he shut down Tariq Cohen a lot there. It's really encouraging to see that, because you kind of worry in coverage with Blake Martinez, who's a little bit more limited, who had a couple of great moments in that game. But Tariq Cohen was one of those matchups that you just don't want Blake Martinez anywhere near. So it's good to see that Raven Green really stepped up into that game. But that's the kind of player that Mike Pettin loves. He loves those multiple guys that can play multiple positions, that are really quick twitch athletes. And Raven Green played only, I think he played only like a couple dozen snaps last year, and Corey got hurt. But he showed some pretty good promise last year, so it's good to see that he's building off of that. And in a big game, underneath the lights, like, what more can you ask from the guy?
Yeah, he showed up, and he's one of those guys that, he's a great story, obviously a former undrafted free agent. He's one of those guys that, he looked like he put on some mass actually this year, a little more. And I mean, that guy's ripped, and he was just around the ball all night. He can do it all. He's proving to be a really valuable asset, to the Packers because, again, those multiple guys like you talked about that Pettine likes, they come in handy, in situations like this. Another guy that, stood out to me was also Tony Brown. This is a guy that, kind of just had a really, really strong sophomore season, sophomore camp rather, just ascending, because he wasn't in camp with the Packers last year. But, this off season was amazing for him. And I really feel like, he got his head around the scheme a lot better. I think he's playing really, really fast. He also had, 5 total tackles, 3 solo, and he was around the ball, and, I like to see guys like that because these are the guys that when, say, your starters, Kevin King, Jair Alexander, Tremont, if the Bears obviously, they have an onslaught of weapons on offense, they're going to be attacking that third or fourth guy a lot. And most of the action seemed to go towards Tony and towards Tremont at times throughout the game. And I just thought he held up really well.
Yeah, he got picked on a little bit early on. Honestly, I think it was just more nerves on his front. And, if you're Matt Nagy, of course you're attacking Tony Brown as opposed to Jair Alexander, Kevin King, or Tremont Williams, right?
Right.
You test the untested guy, right?
Right.
But I felt like he kind of, stepped up a little bit after that. And, he's got the athletic profile to be a really good corner past Kevin King. And especially if King's going to be on a snap count for a little while here. I know he's kind of coming back from, it was a hamstring, I believe. But,
right.
If he's going to be on a snap count, it's good to have guys like that behind the starters that can just kind of play a couple of different positions. And, again, guys like that are multiple that just love to kind of move around the field.
Yeah, I think he definitely brings a ton of value, to what Mike Pettine wants to do. And yeah, like you said, going after, the guy that, really hasn't had a chance to prove himself, I like what I see. I think he held up really well. He's a solid guy in there at, kind of the 4 or 5 spot, on the in the cornerback depth chart, but I thought he did really, really well. And so that was something that was really encouraging to see. Obviously, Jair balled out. He had, a couple pass breakups. Kevin King looked really good. He dropped a really easy potential interception. Hit him right in the gut, right in the breadbasket. That was tough because that would have just been a huge momentum shifter. But I thought he looked really well, and it's crazy because, I don't want to get into this too much, but, in the Packer fan base, I think he's a little scorned, Kevin King, that is, because his availability has obviously not been a strong suit. And I'm of the personal opinion that, nobody asks to be injured in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? And I do realize that there's certain attrition things that these guys could do to try to get their bodies in the best possible shape that they can. But sometimes, man, you just have bad luck. It is what it is.
And he's a really aggressive tackler, and I really think that's been a big part of why he's had those shoulder issues. And you saw it. He had a huge tackle. I forget who the running back was, but he upended somebody, and he's just a really aggressive player. So those kind of guys tend to get hurt a little bit more. They separate their shoulder, or there's just a lot of other things that can kind of happen there. But the tools are there for him to be a great player. And, part of it is it's kind of similar to what Brian Balaga's had throughout his career. He's been injured, but whenever he's on the field, man, it's hard to take them off the field because they're so consistent in what they do and what they offer to the defense, because you just don't find guys that are 6'2" and that can run like Kevin King.
Right.
They don't have that length and they don't have that speed. So matching up against, I know Allen Robinson had a great game, but those are the kinds of guys that you just throw a Kevin King on and just say, cover him as best as you can. I know
Right.
they tried to do that with Julio Jones in the beginning of Kevin King's career, and he did fairly well, all things considered, as much as you can do against the Hall of Fame wide receiver. But, if he stays healthy, that could be the catalyst for this defense to really take it to the next level and take this team to the next level. Like, that's a huge thing to have somebody opposite Jair Alexander who they can rely on. Just throw him on anybody and just say, stop whoever that is, because Jair is doing a great job. And he had 2 pass breakups that were unbelievable. I forget who he closed in on. It was kind of over the middle of the field where just the closing speed on this defense is just unreal. And to see Jair Alexander kind of just close in on the ball and just swat it away, it's something that's been missing from this team probably since 2010.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, the speed is definitely noticeable. I mean, all across the board, and even way down the depth chart. I mean, you talk about Ty Summers. This guy ran like a 4.58. All of these dudes can run. Rashawn Gary. I mean, we don't have to even talk about that dude's athleticism. I mean, it's literally off the charts. Savage broke on a pass up the middle and nearly had that pick. And just the way he broke it up, I got that Nick Collins vibe. I was like, dude, I mean, it wasn't like, the defender was, completely nowhere near the ball like we've seen at times in our past defenses. And I mean, I was like, wow. Something that was incredibly encouraging to me was that I recall, several tip balls, that were up in the air, pass breakups. I mean, and yeah, we came down with one interception, and we'll talk about that a little more. But this defense is going to get their hand on that football, and they're going to get a ton of interceptions.
Yep. And, man, you touched on one of my favorite things. Honestly, I felt like I was tweeting it out during the game the entire time. Those safeties looked great. And honestly, Amos probably came away with the better stat sheet game with, 5 total tackles and 4 solo in the interception. But, man, they played Darnell Savage all over the field, and he held up really well. They used him as a box safety, covering the running backs and tight ends. They used him as a pass rusher. They blitzed him. He got to the quarterback a couple of times. I think he got a QB hit in there. He just looked like he belonged, and for a rookie to do that in his first game, they found something in Darnell Savage, and I'm really excited.
Oh, yeah.
But really, Amos looked great. It's just completely different defense with everything they've added in this offseason. And I know they've in past off seasons, they've tried to draft a lot. They've tried to replace, guys who have left over the years, but they invested a little bit of money into it. They invested some draft capital into it, and there are early returns right now, and it was a lot of fun to watch. Yeah,
it was definitely evident, which we've got to get here, so we're finally here. Let's talk about the Smiths, man. Let's talk about Smith & Smith, the new law firm of the Green Bay Packers. They each had 3 quarterback hits apiece. They totaled 2.5 sacks between them. these guys affected the game in multiple ways, man. You're talking pressure. You're talking run game, setting the edge, disruption. I mean, Trubisky'd get that ball out of his hands, and one of them was just in his face. And then obviously, down to the wire, back-to-back plays where it was those two guys that were just all over his face, and they were just, in his grill, man, just giving him fits, man. Let's talk about the Smiths.
Oh, the Smiths, best law firm in the country. Yeah, it was really fun to see. Honestly, the one that probably stood out the most to me just watching the game, obviously, was Za'Darius. He was in Trubisky's face all day. I think it came out that he had 10 pressures over the course of the game and 1 sack. Obviously destroying the Bears' offensive line. It was great to see because the Packers have really struggled to get pressure in quarterbacks' face the last couple of years. Clay Matthews was getting old. Nick Perry was always injured. And really our best hope was Kyler Fackrell. So, it's good to see the Packers go invest in somebody like Za'Darius Smith, he's a man. There's no other way to describe it. He is a big man that's able to get into the backfield. He just knows how to shed blockers. He knows how to just affect the game altogether. You saw it in the run game, too. He would just shut blockers. He'd just throw people around and then get into that backfield. It's so encouraging to see because late years Clay Matthews was starting to get ragdolled a little bit, and his game was so much predicated on his speed and his quick twitch. It's just good to see guys that can affect the game in multiple ways, and Za'Darius did it all over the field. It was so much fun to watch. But the other one that didn't show up on the stat sheet as much, Preston Smith. I know he had a sack and a half, but he played so much around the field. They put him in coverage a lot. He swatted a pass down. He had that sack and a half looked amazing. But he had 3 QB hits. I don't know if it's just me. I don't remember seeing those 3 QB hits. I felt like he was doing a lot for the team that I didn't see.
Yeah. At times it was a little more difficult to maybe kind of see where, how he affected the game, but he definitely affected the game. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, obviously he shows that, if they can put him in coverage, if Pettine felt comfortable doing that, hey man, more power to him. That's just another way that he can, add another element to his game, but, those guys, he's definitely, in my opinion, Preston looks the quicker of the Smiths. He's more of the finesse game, whereas Za'Darius is, just manhandles people and, but I like both of their games. I like the way they complement each other, because, you got a speed guy, you got a power guy, and they both got power, but they both also have speed. But I just feel, each has their strengths. And then you add in, Rashawn Gary, and you add in Kyler Fackrell. And Rashawn Gary, got in the QB's face, several times. I saw someone did a nice little breakdown. It might have been Ben Fennell. Did a nice little breakdown of just, Rashawn Gary's, I believe he only had 6 defensive snaps. But, in the little that he did, the guy just looks the part, and it was something encouraging about that group, and obviously you compile that with, Kenny Clark, who's a stud, who, Gutekunst, if you're listening, please get the deal done. Lock that guy down. We want to keep him, for many, many more years. He's an amazing player, Dean Lowry, Lancaster, these guys look really, really solid up front.
Yeah, and honestly, it's nice to see a little shake and bake from the outside linebackers. You got your power and you got your speed, and I think they're going to use that a lot. But, the other thing, I keep mentioning it, and it's going to be kind of this constant theme with this Packers team is now that Gutekunst and Pettine are in their second year together, you're going to see a lot of guys that are multiple, and Preston and Za'Darius are that. Preston Smith is just somebody you can throw into coverage and that you can, throw at the quarterback. Za'Darius is going to play on the edge. He's going to play on the inside. He can put his hand in the dirt and, rush up the middle. It's so good to see the Packers have so so many guys that they can kind of throw in different spots. Now, they had that NASCAR package a few years ago. You might see a little bit more of that, when they throw Rashawn Gary in there. I saw a couple of his rushes, and he looked good. He just needs a little bit more polish to his game. But, boy, if he gets any more refinement, those tools are going to start to show out, and it's going to be hard to keep him off the field. But somebody who I didn't hear anything about during that game was Kyler Fackrell. He was their leading sack leader. He was their sack leader last year, and heard nothing about him because the other guys played so well. And it's so good to have that kind of depth, because if you want to be a team that competes in the playoffs, and if you want to be a Super Bowl contending team, you have to have multiple guys that can rush the passer. And it's it's the first game of the season. It's a little early, but it's hard not to say that they have multiple guys that can do that.
Yeah, I think definitely they do. We can't even forget. Blake Martinez had a sack. Kevin King had a sack. Kenny Clark had the other half sack with Preston Smith. So they're showing that they can send pressure from every level of the defense, which was really encouraging to see. Pettin's going to throw all kinds of awesome stuff at them. So. Matt, we got about 8 minutes left. So let's talk about two guys really quick, Matt. J.K. Scott, give me your breakdown.
The leg, man, the leg. It was so fun to see how much he shifted the field, and it's tough for me because I'm a guy that doesn't like to spend high assets on punters and kickers and things like that. But he changed the course of that game, and that last punt in the fourth quarter, that absolutely shifted the game. That you were deep in your own zone, and you completely shifted the field back to their own. I think it was like their 15-yard line. It was awesome to see, and honestly, I don't know what it was last year where Scott struggled at times, but it might be I think it's Menenga. It might be him, just coming in and being able to, have a little bit more better punt coverage for J.K. Scott. I don't know what it is, but he had a couple of punts during that game that looked like something we hadn't seen from a punter for years.
Yeah, most definitely. He had 9 punts for 428 yards of flip field position. He averaged about 47.6, and that last one that you were referring to was a long of 63. So he absolutely is an asset, and I think that's where I think we all find a little bit of solace. Everybody was a little curious as to why Gutekunst drafted a punter in the round that he did, but it's turning out to be an absolute weapon for this special teams unit, who has had their woes and had quite a few struggles in recent history. And so for the most part they tackled well. Tariq Cohen is a phenomenal returner, and I think JK's placement, just where he kept the ball in the field, and it definitely didn't make it easy for the Bears returners. And so kudos to J.K. Scott for doing what he does. So let's go with the last few minutes that we got here, Matt. I'm going to go ahead and give you my player of the game. Are you ready for it?
Ready as I'll ever be.
My player of the game, my friend, is none other than Adrian Amos, the former Chicago Bear, sticking Wayne Larravee's dagger in the hearts of Bears fans on behalf of the Packers with his fourth quarter interception, man. What do you say?
That's a great one. Honestly, it was great irony, and it was just perfect cap to that game to see somebody who Bears fans kind of threw off just said that was the most expendable player of that defense, and we're defending the entire offseason. And to see him come up with the final interception was just absolutely beautiful, and it was It was the perfect end to that game.
Yeah.
So I'm with you there.
Yeah. I love Haha as a person. I really do. I kind of defended the guy a lot, and I will, because I'm not one of those Packer fans that's, ever at, a player's throat and all that kind of stuff. But Haha as a person, great guy, great Packer. Obviously, we did see the effort and different things where it just trailed off in his game. I don't know if it was a mental thing or what, kind of led him to do what he did. He had 5 tackles in the game. Otherwise, didn't really affect the game in any kind of big way, like Amos did for us. So, hey, man, kudos to Amos, man. He definitely came up big when the Packers needed it, because the Bears, for what it's worth, I mean, they were absolutely marching down the field. I think Trubisky just thought he could catch them off guard, and to his demise, right before the 2-minute warning. I mean, I remember I was watching the clock and I was thinking, they'll just go to 2-minute. No, he snaps the ball, and guess what? Tremont's back there in coverage as well, and I believe he was, targeting Allen Robinson. Allen Robinson, kind of gets, bumped or stumbles or whatever happened to him, and Amos is there to clean it up, and that was pretty much the game sealer. We did give the ball back to the Bears, but that was just a huge momentum play, man, at such a critical point in the game.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, my hat's definitely...
Such a great finish.
Yeah, hat's definitely off to him. So, with just a few minutes left, Matt, do you have any final thoughts, any, just final remarks before we sign off?
Yeah, always great to see the Packers win against the division rival, especially on the road. But you'll see a lot this week talking about the offense, or you'll see a lot this week talking about the defense. And it's important to remember it's week 1. There's going to be a lot of things that are going to go on the first couple of weeks that aren't going to look pretty. The Bears offense definitely was one of those things that I don't think looked particularly great on Thursday night. But if the Packers offense can bring this around, and they can show that defense can show what they did on Thursday night, boy howdy, this is going to be a really dangerous team come December, January.
Yep. My sentiments, exactly. I think the Packers definitely have some good things going for them. They're going to have a tough matchup in Minnesota, who's the upcoming opponent in Green Bay. I don't know if you got to catch any of that game today that they played the Falcons. Dalvin Cook looks really good. Their running game looks good. Their defense was on point. Kirk Cousins basically had a 28-point lead, and it was really funny because I noticed that it was like 28-6 or something, I believe, at one point of the game. And I said, this guy has only thrown 10 passes, and his team has put up 28 points. So obviously they were firing on all cylinders in the run game, and they are going to be a tough opponent for the Packers. But hopefully the Packers will pull out another victory early on in the season against another division rival in the Minnesota Vikings this week. And so with that being said, my friend, we're going to go ahead and sign off. We just want to thank you guys for listening. We're excited to be part of the Pack to the Future team. And we are looking forward to bringing our game reviews every single week. So we encourage you, tune in, share this podcast, share it online on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever you can find us. We're going to be there, and we absolutely just want to keep bringing these game reviews for you. So once again, Matt, why don't you give me a big Go Pack Go?
Go Pack Go.
We're signing off. We'll see you guys soon.